Hello, hello! Happy Hallows Eve! Halloween Eve! Hello, hello! Ooh, my chat is off. Give me a second. Ooh. Ooh. There we go. Hi, Merry Scary Eve! Free Candy Eve! I am Pumpkin. Ooh! Oh, thank you, Nara! Oh my goodness, hi! Welcome, welcome! Thank you so much for resubscribing. I appreciate it very much. Thank you, thank you. Oh my goodness, 11 months! Almost a year! That's very exciting. Oops. I'm trying to keep the music back for some vibes. Let me know if it's too loud or too distracting. But yeah, it's gonna be a chill stream tonight. Let me finish fixing this. Beep, 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 beep. Beep. I could make this bigger, you know what? Yes. So, tell me, I know we talked a little bit about costumes and Halloween plans last night. But if anyone wasn't here last night and you want to tell me what you're dressing up as or what your plans are, let me know. Yes, I do be a pumpkin. That's me. I have a witch hat too, if y'all would rather a witch hat. But I thought the pumpkin was kind of funny. I thought the pumpkin was cute. So I decided I'm going to be a pumpkin for a hot second. F-A-A-F-O, Fae Edition. What's F-A-A-F-O? Oh, fuck around and find out. Okay. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. That's what these people are doing. Ugh. So hello, we got Lorenzo, we got Pillow, we got Macaron, and we got Nara. Hi, hi. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying the spooky background. I thought it would be fun to do something special for our Halloweeny stream. I apologize if my voice is not, I'm not at my full voice. My voice is a little tired today, so I'm speaking just a bit softer as not to overwhelm it and put me out of commission. I just got back. I can't be getting too crazy. But, ooh, goth in disguise. What disguise? Well, if y'all get in costume tomorrow or you have a cute Halloween outfit, make sure you post it in the Discord server so we can all see it. It'll be really cute. I think I just washed my matching Halloween pajamas today, doing lots of laundry from my Ireland trip. So I'll probably be wearing those tomorrow night because I am all about just relaxing and being comfy. After all that traveling I was doing, it is time to be cozy and relaxed. That's the plan for me tomorrow. Hi, Alita. Welcome. Hello. Ads were crazy. Started with 35 seconds and then it... Damn. Are you watching on mobile? I hear that the mobile ads are crazy. Beverage for tonight. We don't have any metal, so no fun sounds. But I have a... peach? No, not peach. Orange mango sparkling water. That's pretty good. I'm so used to peach mango being a combo instead of orange mango, but listen, I'm not mad at it. It's good. It's refreshing. I thought about drinking a cup of tea, but I didn't necessarily want anything hot, even though it would probably be better for my vocal cords. I wanted something cold and refreshing, so here we are. Ooh, peach raspberry. That also sounds good. Listen, speaking of raspberries. Okay, so we can talk a little bit about my Ireland trip before we get into the stories. So, in Ireland, I don't know if it was like raspberry season over there, but I kept seeing like fresh raspberries at the local markets everywhere, and anything raspberry I ate over there was perfection. Like raspberries in baked goods, raspberry jam, whatever they were in, the raspberries were perfection. I mean, Ireland, they can grow lots of things over there. The climate is good. The land is fertile. Many things are tasty and delicious. But those raspberries, man, I was all about raspberries while I was over there. So, as I have mentioned, it's raspberry season from May to November. The last batch of the season. Yeah, probably true. Dang, a 7-month season. That's longer than I thought it was. But hell yeah, raspberries. I am so glad I was there to enjoy in-season produce. That was delicious. Oh. Well, before we get into the stories, because it's from a book. I have a physical book with me. Because I found a secondhand bookshop. And I don't know, our tour group walked past it, but then we had some free time, so I ran back up the street and back into the secondhand bookshop because I saw this book in the window. And it's called Irish Gothic Fairy Stories from the 32 Counties of Ireland. Written by Steve Lally and Paula Flynn Lally, a couple from Ireland. They're artists, like music artists and writers and creatives. So, it had the cover of like a spooky looking horse on the front, and I was like, I like fairy stories, and that looks creepy as hell, so I went and bought the book. And so I bought a couple other books, mostly music, like sheet music and stuff. But I read a little bit of it, and there's gonna be some fun stuff. I'm very excited to get into that. You ever seen fresh Italian lemons? They're the size of your hand and sweet instead of sour. I have not. The only lemons we get here in stores are like the regular lemons or the Meyer lemons, which I think are a crossbreed of a lemon and some kind of orange. And that's why they're different. But no, I'll keep on the lookout. I mean, I've heard that Sicily is popular for lemons. That's where I need to go, because I've been to Ireland now twice, but my father's side is Sicilian, so I need to go to Sicily and get me some lemons, I guess. But Ireland is a beautiful, magical place, and God, everybody should go. It is the people there. I mean, I always say they're the nicest people, but then when I tell them that to their face, they look at me like I'm crazy. And somebody told me that Irish people just reflect back at you what you give them. So apparently they're being nice to me because I'm nice to them. But I just think they're great. They're warm. They're happy you're there. They want everybody to know about Ireland and Irish culture. So I would definitely mark it. And everything is so beautiful and lush and green. Ugh. Hello, Jayla. Welcome. Happy Halloween Eve. I hope you're having a good evening. Need to go to the UK and Ireland and Scotland. Yeah, man, the British Isles are definitely interesting. The only other, like, European country I've been to is Germany, so I need to go to other places in Europe, but I say that like I have infinite money to travel. I'm probably not going to be traveling anywhere else for a while, but listen, I'm happy when I get the chance. And, gosh. And honestly, so we're talking Irish stories tonight because the Irish invented Halloween. The Celts, specifically the original inhabitants of Ireland, over 2,000 years ago. Halloween, titled All Hallows Eve, by the church when they came over and colonized the place, was the original Celtic celebration was called Samhain, and it was treated as the new year in like the Celtic calendar. And so this was the time when the veil between the other world, or the spirit world, and the human world is the thinnest. So they actually share some similar traditions between Dia de los Muertos in Mexico and other Latin American countries. They would set up offerings for their ancestors who would come back because the veil was so thin. So they thought that their ancestors would come and visit on that night. So they would set out like food or liquor or tobacco, you know, whatever their ancestor had liked in life. They would set out some things, you know, say some prayers. And they would also set out offerings for maybe the not so nice spirits. And this offering was like a, hey, here's just stay away from me. You can have some of this, but don't come in my house and don't cause me trouble. Here, some of this shit. So I thought it was so interesting that two completely different cultures on two completely different sides of the world have very similar traditions. I love anthropology. I love learning about people. We have so many similarities. Like, yes, we are all different and we can celebrate differences, but it's also amazing the similarities that we can find. And so when the Catholics came over, and decided to colonize Ireland, they were trying, the Celts were not so happy to go into the church. They were just like, no, fuck you. We like our religion. Thank you. And so the church was like, okay, how do we get these people to come in and believe in our God? And so they turned Samhain into All Hallows Eve on October 31st, All Saints Day on November 1st for the children and those who died before their time, and then All Souls Day on November 2nd, aka my birthday, which is, you know, the day of remembering, you know, all ancestors and those who died in their old age. And again, the Catholic Church did the same thing in Mexico. Except it was the Spaniards who brought it over to Mexico instead of the Normans who brought it over to Ireland. There was a lot of French nonsense going on in Ireland in the 1200s. That's when all that shit started to happen. But Bon, yes, Bon in Japan. Although isn't Bon in like August or September? Bon is a little bit earlier. But yeah, see, another culture, you know, leaving out, you know, offerings and the ancestors visiting during a certain day of the year. Really, really interesting. The French are nosy. Not as nosy as the British, though. Yeah, no, I mean, the whole reason, okay, so people in Ireland, a lot of Irish people have, of course, they have the Celtic ancestry, they have the English ancestry, but they also have French or Norman ancestry and like Norwegian ancestry because the Vikings showed up there first. The Vikings showed up, that's why Dublin is named Dublin. Dublin in some ancient like Norse language means black pool because that's what it was when the Vikings showed up there. So the Vikings came over and mixed with the locals. And then the Normans came over in the 1200s, and they were like, we like it here. The land is fertile, and there are lots of ports. We're going to build castles fucking everywhere. And then the English saw the Normans building their castles and mixing with the locals and starting trade, and the English were like, we don't like them. We don't like the French people. You are too close to us. That is a short boat ride away from our island, and fuck you, we're taking over. So then the English came over, and then Ireland was colonized for 800 years by the English. But it's so funny that just everybody is kind of a mishmash of those, you know, types of ancestry over in Ireland because of all of the... Everybody invaded that island. Everybody decided to... take all of the land and the resources for themselves. So, but anyway, Catholicism changed Samhain into Halloween, or All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and All Souls Day. So, that's kind of the origins of the festival. Martha makes me feel like I'm talking to Madoka. Do I? I don't know. I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched it. I don't know if I give off the vibe, but if that's a good thing, sure. The way they adapt to local traditions is interesting. In Orthodox missionaries converted Inuit people, they were still allowed to speak with their dead ancestors as long as they followed Paul's direction to ask any spirit to acknowledge Jesus to make sure it's not a demon. I mean, it's a similar thing with, like in Mexico, there are still, like brujeria is still, like, a part of, like, Christian practice in some regions in Mexico. And in Ireland, the most important, like, goddess in, like, the Celtic pantheon, Brigid, or Brigid in English, she was made into a saint. And there is now a national, like, bank holiday in Ireland called St. Brigid's Day. And that was Brigid, the Celtic goddess, a healer. And so her priestesses, when the Catholics came over, were turned into nuns. Wild, wild shit. If you want to see a place full of invasion... Estonia! Okay, listen, Estonia is on my list. I've been wanting to go there for years, so yes, most definitely. Oh, it's the pink and the magic... Yes. Okay, I'll give it that. I will give it that. Yes, I am a pink magical thing. That do be me. But yes, I definitely want to go to Estonia. That is, it's so funny. The reason I wanted to go to Estonia originally is I was a big fan of this singer in college called Curly, K-E-R-L-I. She's an Estonian singer. And I liked her a lot, and I found out she was from Estonia. So then I looked up where Estonia was and, you know, some about the country, and I thought it was really cool. So eventually, I would like to go there. Well, let me pull up the book, and let me pull up one of our first stories of the night. So we've gone, oh, I forgot I was going to tell y'all about, because I told y'all about the Catholics. I went on an anthropology rabbit hole. But, some of our Halloween traditions, like carving jack-o'-lanterns, that started in Ireland. Originally, because pumpkins are native to, you know, the Americas, people in Ireland would carve turnips. If you look up turnip jack-o'-lanterns, those fuckers are scary. Those are actually terrifying, and those were put to, you would carve into the turnip and hollow it out and stick a candle in there because the lit up, like, freaky face was supposed to trick, malevolent spirits into thinking that that was a human they could haunt and trick and mess with. And so the jack-o'-lanterns, the little turnips, were like distractions for evil spirits. And so when folks of Irish ancestry, when Irish people came over to the Americas, and they're like, well, there's not enough fucking turnips here, what are we supposed to do? And then they said, well, let's use these orange things. So that's how it became pumpkins. But it's so funny that, like, a lot of Irish people now, like, I saw pumpkins in the grocery stores over there. They're selling pumpkins now because American Halloween has become so popular in, like, the pop culture zeitgeist that now there are turnips and pumpkins, like, next to each other in Halloween decorations in Ireland. So it's kind of funny how, you know, it made, like, a cultural loop there. I need to go back. There's a chess set made of amber. That's crazy. They look like re-deads from Zelda. Oh, they got creepy turnip heads. Turnip heads in Zelda? Okay. What's my favorite Pokemon? That's a hard question. We were talking about Pokemon last night, too. My dyslexic ass read that as redheads. Come on now, don't be mean to the gingers. But, you know, we're talking about Irish people, so I guess redheads is on topic. God, I was in, we went to the city of Sligo, and I was walking around, and this beautiful woman with the most gorgeous, long, thick, wavy, red, like naturally copper red hair. Like, I feel like she could have been on the pamphlet for Ireland. The, like, pale, translucent skin, bright blue eyes, and the long, beautiful, wavy, thick red hair. And she comes up to me and oh, I love your hair. You know, me and my pink hair. And I was like, mine? Girl, you won the genetic lottery with that gorgeous head of hair. I swear to God, if I was single, I would have taken her out for a drink. She could have drained me dry, but God, she was beautiful. Anyway. Ooh, linked a picture in Discord. Good. I like ghosties. Sandygast. Yes. Oh yeah, J-Lo. We were talking about ghost type Pokemon last night. Ghastly and Haunter are a couple of my favorites. I also have a thing for Chansey. I just think Chansey's cool. And Clefairy. Yeah. They're all like old school Pokemon, because that's what I grew up on. But I love them. They're good. Yeah, maybe I did have a little crush on her. She was pretty gorgeous. Anyway. So yeah, Halloween turnips and, and the trick-or-treating. So trick-or-treating was like, God, I had just watched a video essay on the history of trick-or-treating in Ireland, and now I can't think of it. But we've been yapping for a while, so let's get into some of these stories, shall we? Let's get back on topic. So let me pull up. That was page... What page were we on? This one is about a tree. Ah, yes. Okay. So, where... Ugh. Here it is. Okay. So, Martha chat on topic? Never. Jayla, I like everybody. I play for all the teams. I swing both ways. Let's swing all the ways. Binaries? Bah! Who needs them? Gengar shiny. Well, I don't know what a shiny Gengar looks like. Hello, Aqua. Happy Halloween Eve. But our first story is called The Fairy Tree. The Fairy Tree by Marie McCartan. So here's a story. Because Irish people take fairy trees seriously. And if you don't know what a fairy tree is a lone tree or a bush. Just like by itself. It's not in a forest. It's not, it's not with a bunch of other stuff. It's alone. And that's how you know that it is from the fae, from the fairies, and you do not touch it. In 1994, the Irish had to plead with the European Union to divert an entire motorway around this hawthorn bush because it was a fairy tree. And like Germany and England and France, they were all fucking mad because it was gonna take so much more money to like build this road, because they were like, just cut the fucking bush down, dude. Like, if it's in the way, just cut it down. And the Irish were like, no, you don't understand. This is from the fucking fairies. You do not touch it, or we will all be in very big trouble. And so they succeeded. And the bush is still there. And the motorway, the highway goes around this fucking hawthorn bush. I love it. I love how absolutely serious they take this shit. It does sound like an anime plot, doesn't it? Like, like, it's silly, but I'm just like, you know what? Yeah. If there is something alone by itself, I'm not touching it. Have you seen that woman on TikTok who's always like, put it back? The Irish are very much like that. Put that thing back where it came from, or so help me. Don't fuck with it. Don't touch it. Ugh. Anyway, I'm glad you're glad to be here, Nara. I'm happy you're here too. I've missed doing streams. Okay, so the fairy tree. Now that we know what it is. He was born along the border on wet and boggy land. He got started at the smuggling and bought himself a van. He shifted pigs and cattle. It was profit without pain. He bought himself a lorry and started moving grain. He was known for sharp dealing, a smart mover, a cute hooer. Money changed how people saw him. You're no one when you're poor. But when you're rich, you're not a smuggler. You're an entrepreneur. On a mansion, he decided, just as big as it could be. He had found the site he wanted, out near Drummondtree. A meadow of 5 acres where the corn crake used to be. But growing in the middle was a little fairy tree. He bought the land and paid in cash and had the plans drawn up. To him, it was a hawthorn bush. His plans it wouldn't stop. He brought his aging mother, his dream sight for to see. She stood a while, then sighed and said, "You bought a fairy tree." He said he planned to build there, just where the tree was stuck. She said, "You'll have to leave it. It will only bring bad luck." He said that all that talk is pisshogs. It's just a hawthorn bush. There's no such thing as fairies. It will fall down with a push. Thank you, Pillow. In layman's terms, a lorry is a truck. I used to do reactions, but I have not done it in a while. She says, "I have to warn you that if you touch that tree, the luck that kept you going till now nevermore will be. You can't cut it, you can't push it, you must wait till it falls down. A fairy tree is sacred, for it grows on fairy ground." Although he didn't heed her much, he began to have some qualms. The fairy tree would have to go, but he'd have to change his plans. He resolved to dig around it and hired a JCB. But the roots remained embedded, and the fairy tree stood free. He thought he'd try and burn it out. Sure, they'd have to let that pass. The fairies couldn't blame him for a fire in the grass. As he sprinkled on the kerosene and waited for to see, a voice from out of nowhere warned, "Don't burn the fairy tree." He looked around and saw no one, thought, "Oh, it's all in my head." But the voice from out of nowhere said, "Destroy it, and you're dead." He lit the match and dropped it. Then out of there did flee. The fire burnt everything in sight, except the fairy tree. He thought he'd try explosives. He brought experts from afar. You won't find that kind of expert in places like South Amar. They carefully laid the charges, blew up stones and lumps of wood. But when the smoke and dust had settled, the fairy tree still stood. He thought he'd try and flood it out. To hell with the bad luck. He brought the digger in again, diverted a large shuck. The water poured around it and flooded the big field. But the fairy tree still stood its ground. It wasn't going to yield. He built the house around the tree. It was finished, safe and sound. What happened is a mystery. One night, the house fell down. Music's too loud? Okay, give me a second. The field was filled with rubble, burnt, blew up, and then the flood. But right there in the middle, the fairy tree still stood. If he'd listened to his mother and left the fairy tree, he'd still have all his money, house, wife, and sanity. Social position doesn't matter to a fairy, young or old, but underneath the fairy tree, they store their pots of gold. So if you happen to pass by a fairy tree between dusk and early dawn, don't look back or linger. Just bless yourself and go on. That's the fairy tree. Alright, let me boost my volume real quick. I was doing a lot of teaching today, and sometimes my mic doesn't like when I sing very loud. Audio devices. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that audio dropped. That should be better. That should be louder. Denzel Crocker could not handle this. Very good, parents! Oh, man. Yeah, he'd probably try and dig up the tree and end up like this guy. Okay, but even if you dig up the entire roots, the tree may be gone, but then you'd have the wrath of the fairies. Any stories about psychics or magicians? Well, let's take a look, shall we? After a little sippy. Okay. Where's my contents? Ew. How about horses? Can we do one about horses? Irish divination lore. That would be... Oh. I did not touch the tree. I just touched the dirt underneath it. You're trying to find a loophole with the fairies are masters of loopholes. I don't know if you're going to win that battle. My special supernatural interest is divination / seance history. Ooh. That sounds fun. Let's see. All right, let's next see, because at the table of contents, they don't list each story individually. They list like what county the story is from. So I'm kind of just having to pick and choose here. Ooh, shadow figures. That's cool. If y'all are familiar with changelings, those are Irish. Where they would take a normal human child and replace it with an imposter. Interesting. I just love how folks used to communicate with the spirits. There's my favorite podcast. It's called Ghouls Night In. They did a whole podcast episode about seances. I'll have to find that and post it because it's pretty good. Changelings are scary. Bruh. You don't mess with the fairies. God. There was a game I played a few years ago. I streamed it on YouTube. So the VODs are still there. It was a game called Changeling. And the main character, like, you played as a changeling. Like, you didn't know you were a changeling, but as the game went on, like, memories from both the human child and then the changeling that was put in the human world, the memories start to mix. And so you're trying to find a way to get back into the fairy world to, like, find the real, like, human you. It was crazy. I'll have to see if I can find that again. That was a really interesting game. Isn't the changeling myth rooted in ableism and ancient peoples not understanding certain disabilities? Yes, it was heavily connected with, like, autism, and other neurodivergencies. Like, that's one theory. There are other, like, possible explanations for changelings. And that was the big one, yes. Did I ever play that cryptid help hotline? No. Can you link it to me? That sounds fucking fantastic. We talk about cryptids all the time. We need to play that game. Absolutely. Alright, well, let's get into our next story. We have The Fairy Horses from County Cavan. And this is a story from a local. If the child was sickly and died, they were said to have been changelings. Okay, interesting. Long, long ago, a girl went to the Salagan Bog near Loch Gona in County Cavan for a bag of turf. Turf, if you don't know, is peat. Which is many, many thousands of years old. Peat, which is used to burn in fireplaces to heat homes in rural Ireland. Turf is what the fuel source is called. It is a very treacherous place, and it is not advisable to go there when the light is bad, for there are many bog holes and marshes that cannot be seen in the dusk. But the poor child did not take heed of this fact, and she fell into a bog hole and drowned. That was a real problem. That's why bog bodies exist. Bogs are great at preserving things. Like, there are, like, prehistoric Irish elk antlers that have been found in bogs perfectly preserved. They found bodies. They're called Irish mummies or bog mummies that were just preserved by these bogs because people trying to travel would see these balls of light. And in Celtic myth, they're known as will-o'-the-wisps. And they were seen as, like, spirits. Troublesome spirits who would lead you to your ruin. But they're actually balls of, like, igniting gas from these bogs. And people would see these lights and think it was like a house or, you know, a town in the distance. And they would follow these, like, balls of, like, ignited gas and then fall into the bogs and these bog holes. And they would become bog mummies because they followed the light. That was a natural occurring thing, but not good for people trying to get home at night. So, fun facts! Yes, natural embalming. Crazy shit. The planet Earth is a wild place, isn't it? But anyway, this little girl went to go for turf, fell into a bog hole and died. There was a great commotion and concern when she did not return home. The bog was searched and her poor little body was found. After the body was brought home and the wake and funeral were over, her older brother went to the same bog for a bag of turf. Not smart, this family. Not the bog mummies. So true. Unlike his sister, he took heed of the warnings, especially careful after the tragic death of his wee beloved sibling. He went early in the morning when the light was good, and he began to collect the dried turf and put it into the potato sack he had taken with him. Whilst he was collecting the turf, he heard a voice being carried on the wind. It was a child's voice, and it was calling his name ever so mournfully. "Michael! Help me! Please help me!" Michael looked around and he almost fell over when he saw his little sister standing before him. Poor Michael did not know what to do and he ran home. He was very shaken by all of this and he didn't say anything to his parents. That night he lay in his bed unable to sleep when a short while later he heard a troop of horses riding by his window. And he could hear the sad voice of his sister calling out his name once again. He was terrified and frozen to the spot, his heart beating in his chest like a drum. He did not dare go out and see what was going on. He felt guilty about this and the fact that he had also run away after his sister had asked for his help, but he was scared stiff. When he woke up the next morning, he was filled with dread. He kept wondering if it was a nightmare or if he was so badly affected by the loss of his sister that he was experiencing a stage of grief he had heard people talk about. But he wasn't sure, so he decided to return to the bog and hope he could maybe talk to his sister. Sure enough, his sister appeared to him again. He went to reach out to her, but she disappeared right before his eyes. This time, when he went home, he told his parents, who were very concerned, but they had heard of such things happening before. His father said they should go and see Tommy the She-Dog, a fairy doctor or wise man who lived in Mullahoran, County Cavan. Tommy claimed to have lived among the Sheed for over 20 years and was an expert on their ways. The Sheed is the Irish for fairy. Oh, I missed something about a gas pit here. Hang on. Reminds me of the idiots who accidentally lit a natural gas pit while mining, and now there's a pit that's been on fire for more than 50 years. That's crazy. That's wild. Oh, I'm glad. I'm glad you find this relaxing. Very good. That's a demon. Yeah, I also think it's a demon, but they're gonna get the fairy doctor and his opinion, so let's see what he says. The father and the son headed off to see Tommy the She-Dog. When they got to his wee cottage in Mullahoran, they could hear him talking away to someone inside the house. On entering, they thought that Tommy must have been talking to himself, for there was not a soul besides himself in the place. They asked him who he was speaking to, and he replied, "The good people." They looked at each other and knew fine rightly he was referring to the fairy folk. Now, there's a reason why they're called the good people in Ireland. And that's when humans were, talking about the Sheed or the Fae. Fairies listen. They listen in on all your shit. And they didn't want to get in trouble. So even if the fairies were bothering them or causing trouble, they would always call them the good people. So that they themselves wouldn't get in specific trouble. Michael and his father explained to Tommy that what had happened and how the wee girl had appeared before Michael in the bog twice, and how he had heard the sound of horses running past the house and his sister calling out to him the night before. They then asked what was going on and what they should do. The wise man thought it over and told them that the body they had buried was not the man's daughter nor the boy's sister, but a fairy. He explained to them that the fairies take children and replace them with one of their own, called a changeling. Look at us, we're getting right back on topic. He said that sometimes they even leave behind an inanimate object like a broom or a shovel after they steal a human, and this is called a stock. Well, as you can imagine, the father and son were very perplexed with all of this, and they were eager to find out what they should do. Tommy told Michael he had to go to the bog the following day alone and talk to his sister, but not to try and make any physical contact with her. That night, Michael lay awake again, and at the stroke of midnight, he heard a troop of horses running past the house, and the sound of his wee sister calling out his name. "Michael! Michael! Michael!" This time, he wanted to run out and save her, but he stopped himself because he remembered the advice he was given by Tommy the She-Dog. Sure enough, he went to the Salagan bog the next day on his own. When he got there, his sister reappeared again, and Michael spoke to her, asking her where she was and if she was all right. She told him that she did not drown at all, and that she was only spirited away by the fairies, and that every night at 12 o'clock she would go past the gable of their family house riding a white horse along with a group of horsemen. She then told him that there was only one way she could be saved, and that was if he would stand at the gable of the house as she rode past and make a grab to catch her. If he missed, they would both die instantly, but if he was quick enough, he would not lose his grasp. I don't know, man. If you only got one shot. It's because the father went with him, Pillow. No, there's not infidelity. Michael and his father went to go see the fairy doctor, and the fairy doctor said, no, this is not your daughter talking to the father, and not your sister talking to the son. That's what he was saying. Take another sippy. Well, let's see if Michael is gonna save the day or if they're both dead. With that, the wee girl disappeared, and poor Michael was left standing alone in the bog, not knowing quite what to do. Not Cinderella. Ugh. When he got home, he told his parents what their daughter had said to him, and they were very concerned indeed. In fact, they were not going to allow their son to go out that night for fear that they would lose him too. But he pleaded with his parents and said that he heard the horses and his sister running past his room at the end of the house every night, and he would surely lose his mind if he did not do something about it. His father took pity on him, and he also admired his son's courage and selflessness. He told him that he would help him that night. He gave his son a black-handed knife, which is protection against the fairies, and he told him to stand his ground and he would catch onto his legs if he was taken by the fairies. Well, it was getting close to midnight, and the father and son waited at the gable at the end of the house as the mother looked out the window with a candle lit on the sill. There was a great tension in the air, and the three of them were very frightened. Then they heard something in the distance. It was the sound of thundering hooves approaching. Michael's heart was beating hard, and his father was saying the rosary, for he knew their lives depended on it. And unbeknownst to them, the mother was inside the house, rhyming off a decade herself. It was then that they saw the white chargers coming towards them, and there on one of the beautiful horses was the little girl. They could see the other riders, and they were fearsome-looking creatures with faces so terrible that words could not describe them. But Michael focused only on his beloved sister's precious face. Right there and then, he made a promise to himself that he would make sure both of them would be safe in their beds that night. As the wee girl rode past, Michael jumped and grabbed her. He faltered for just a second, but his father grabbed his legs, and together they pulled the child from the horse. One of the riders stopped and gave Michael a fearsome look. He was about to dismount and attack the boy when Michael's father told him to take out the knife. Michael took the black-handled blade from his belt and thrust it into the rider's stomach. A gush of green blood spewed from the wound, and the rider let out a terrible scream, and both he and his horse disappeared before their eyes. Michael was still holding on to his sister, and he was relieved to see that she was unharmed. His father told him he was very proud of him, and that they should take the child inside and put her to bed. They all watched over her that night. After that, the wee girl never went to the bog on her own again, and Michael's father let him keep the knife and told him he had earned it, for he was a man now. And those are the fairy horses. Ah, the horses in midnight remind me of Cinderella. Definitely. No, I would also not follow a disembodied voice. Absolutely not. No. It's like the rules in Appalachia. If you hear it, no you didn't. If you see it, no you didn't. Go back home. Turn around. Don't follow that voice. Go home. Very much so. But the stories are interesting, aren't they? It's like the original horror movies. You're screaming at the main characters, no, don't go in there. Don't go in there. Run away, bitch. Time to pray. Well, at least the mother was praying. Both mom and dad were praying the rosary. Doing all the Hail Marys, every single bead. Oh, Lord. I feel the horse riding aspect of the story is the phaeton. Oh, duh. Yeah. Tee-hee-hee, we've got your sister. What are you gonna do about it? Very much so. Let's see, what other stories? You wanted divination. Oh, that sounds interesting. Okay, I'm gonna bookmark that one. Something about the fiddler and the fae. Billy and the changeling of Glasgar. We already did a changeling. So let's do something else. Oh, that's a long one. I don't know what the buffering is. Hold on. I don't know, because this was happening last night. And I don't know what it is, because I'm connected to the 5G. I don't know what it is. Let me go while we're at a stopping point. Eep! There goes my bookmark. Alright, let me bookmark my place here. And let me go check one thing and see if it'll fix my connection. Give me just a moment, please. Hello, Rose. I do see you. Happy Halloween. Okay. Hopefully, that should be fixed. Let me turn the music back down again. And Rose, I do prefer they, them pronouns, please. Just as a note. Not the Halloween paranormal activity. Ugh. Funny. Hold on, what did I miss? You stabbed a fairy, that's pretty metal, you're a man now. For real. Ah, yes! There we go. The connection is much better now. I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be alright. Thank you for your patience. Not the Gremlins! God, I haven't watched that movie in a while. Well, go take some painkillers. If you're back, ouch, like a motherfucker. Be free. Yeah, we know you're in Japan, so it's Halloween for you. What did you end up doing? Right, I don't know. What time is it over there? We don't know if you, were out partying or not. You can watch on YouTube, Jayla. You can watch wherever you want. That's why I stream in both places. Alright, so we had the option for a fiddler. What else did we have? Johnny McKenna and the King of the Fairies. We could talk about the Fairy King. Wee Meg Barnaleg and the Fairies. Is this just like people's account? People's accounts with the fairies. Let's see. Let me see. I'm trying to find... Oh, there's another. We gotta get into the next province. The Fairy Pass. The Puka horse. We've already done horses. Oh, wait a minute. Ooh, this one might be it. The Banshee Welcoming Party. Oh, it's afternoon. Oh, okay. Well, you gotta tell us where you're gonna be going tonight. Yes, Japan, I think, is like 14 hours ahead of me, so... Okay. Does everybody know about banshees and how they scream? We'll do the Fairy King after we talk about the banshees. I have a soft spot in my heart for these bitches. I think there is a band called the Banshees, actually. Inspired by the supernatural creature. Okay, well, let's talk about the Banshee Welcoming Party. Here we go. Everybody has heard of the Banshee, a female fairy of Ireland, who makes herself known by wailing and shrieking before a death, and usually within a particular family. The Banshee is known in Irish as the Woman of the Fairies. There is a tradition in our family, the storyteller's family, handed down by my great-grandfather, whose name is Holohan. He lived at a place called Sugarstown near Thomastown, County Kilkenny. He met the Banshee, and the terrifying experience he had on that winter's night long ago is remembered with awe by the family, as if it were only yesterday that it actually happened to themselves. It is one of the fireside stories which I have often heard my father relate to us. It is a true story because it is preserved in our family. Here is the story told to me by my father and handed down to him in the exact words of his own father. Yes, the heralds of death. Hey, a Halloween dinner is a respectable thing. I'm down for a Halloween dinner. Yeah, I guess they are probably the most well-known. Banshees and leprechauns. When Stephen Dwyer's great-grandfather Holohan was a child, times were very hard in Ireland as the famine was in full swing, with death and despair at every turn. His own father had died when he was still a baby, and his mother had to work very hard to rear the family. They were desperate times, with starvation and poverty crushing the souls of all those who came in the wake of the Great Hunger. But God was good to them, and they survived. As soon as Holohan was old enough to work, he went out to make himself a living, whatever way he could, to take care of his poor mother and his younger brothers and sisters. But there was no work to be had in Ireland, and Holohan was left destitute. So he decided to do what many of his fellow countrymen and women had done. He emigrated to America. No, Holohan, sorry, H-O-L-O-H-A-N, Holohan, not Houlihan. Yeah, there's a lot of female figures in folklore. I bet you somebody's done a study on that. Lurk, gonna go get ready for the day. If I don't make it back in time, y'all have a happy Halloween. Happy Halloween, Rose. I hope you enjoy your day. Have fun. All right. Holohan made it to America, and he got on well over there, making plenty of money and sending what he could back to his family in Kilkenny. He spent a long time in the States, but after many years, he missed home. This is what he said on the matter. After many years, I, like other exiles, got a longing to return to the old home. My mother and brothers and sisters were overjoyed at the news, and on the very morning on which I sailed from New York, I received a letter of welcome from my poor mother. He went on to say that the note paper from his mother was bedewed in tears, but they were tears of joy. His mother was beside herself with delight, knowing that her eldest son was arriving home after so many years away from her. She told Holohan in the letter that they had a great spree in store for him, and his brothers and sisters would be there to greet him too. Destitute is such a fancy word for poor. It is. I admit I only know the name Houlihan because of Chris Houlihan. Or the Chris Houlihan room. I wasn't aware of the name Holohan. No, that was a new name for me, too. Well, it was real enough to send money back to Ireland. I think it was also just that Ireland was just so destitute at the time. Shortly afterwards, he set sail from New York to take the long voyage home to Ireland. After almost a month at sea, he arrived at the harbor of Cork City, and from there he got a mail coach to Kilkenny. This was another long journey of almost 100 miles. Actually, I went to both Cork and Kilkenny on my trip. They were lovely cities. Kilkenny much smaller than Cork. Cork was a bigger city. I'll have to, pull up a map at some point and show y'all where I went. Eventually, he arrived in Kilkenny town around 9 p.m. The coach was putting up for the night at an inn there, but Holohan was keen to get home, so he set off on foot to Sugarstown, County Kilkenny. This was over a 10-mile walk. Damn, my guy, that would take you a long time. God. But he did not mind and was determined to see the old homestead. After about 5 miles, he arrived at Bennett's Bridge, where he met some old friends from his childhood. He spent a few hours with them playing cards and having a sing-along. At midnight, he bid them farewell and resumed his journey home. Why? Man, are you gonna go greet your family at 3 in the morning? Why are you walking around at midnight? Of course you're gonna go see the Banshee. Alright. At midnight, he bid them farewell and resumed his journey home. In the distance, he could hear the sound of music and merrymaking. He knew that this was the spree that his mother had talked about in her letter to him, and was excited about seeing them all. Just as he turned a bend in the road, he heard a woman's voice calling out, "Mother bids thee come! She is waiting too long!" That particular night, the stars were shining bright, but the moon was pale in the sky above him. Holohan knew this was no ordinary mortal woman who was wailing in the night wind. He knew that it was the Banshee, the woman of the fairies, and he knew what her keening meant, too. Remind me to talk about keening. Uphill both ways! Oh! Barefoot! In the snow! He heard her call out again with a blood-curdling shriek and wasted no time. He quickly ran across the slope of the hill, passing the grove or the fairy mound that he knew so well from his boyhood days. He was out of breath and full of fear. He glanced around. Mother of mercy, he yelled as he watched the banshee swirl in circles above in the night sky, her long silver hair flowing and her snow-white dress trailing after her. Then she descended from the sky and gracefully sat down on a rock before him. Her hair was streaming down onto the damp moss, and her face was bowed on her bosom. Holohan called out to her, "Tell me quick, is there anything wrong at home?" "Mother and brothers and sisters bid thee come," she answered in a low and mournful moan. Then she threw her head back, showing her terrible face and burning eyes that turned Holohan's blood to ice, and shrieked so loud that he thought his ears might burst. She flew away from him, crying and shrieking. The sound of her wailing was all around him, and it haunted Holohan right up until his death. He ran as fast as he could over the hills and mounds until at last he was at his own house. He expected to hear the sound of music and laughter and see his family ready to welcome him into their arms. The cottage was silent, and there was no sign or sound of any sort of celebration. Holohan threw open the door, and to his horror, he saw his brothers and sisters kneeling around his poor mother, lying dead in her bed. He fell to his knees as he kissed the icy cold lips of his mother. He could hear the faint wailing of the banshee being carried on the night wind. She called out over the land, the hills, the trees, and the mounds, "Dying! Dying! Dying! Dying!" Whew. Jesus. Oh, that's creepy. But that's, banshees, I can't remember if it was banshees that came first or the mourning tradition that came first. But the story mentioned she was keening, or kerning, and that is a traditional way of mourning the dead in Ireland. It was a Celtic tradition. It's dying out just because a lot of modern folks see it as like melodramatic or unsightly, but it's this like, it's kind of hard to describe the sound, but it's this like moaning and crying, and families used to hire like keening women. They would hire, and it was women specifically who did this, and it was probably related to the banshee in some way, but they would hire women to do this at funerals to mourn their dead. And it would be like a procession. They would carry out the corpse to bury it, and as they walked to where they would bury the body, these women would be behind just wailing and moaning. And you can hear a little bit of like a sound inspired by it in the Cranberries song Zombie, because the front woman of the Cranberries was Irish, and she was inspired by this ancient tradition of how the Irish would mourn their dead. And so she wrote the song Zombie, and and zombie, zombie, eh, eh, eh. And when she would do the like riffs and the runs after the chorus, I cannot replicate the sound as of now, but she would try and like replicate the sound in her song. So if you're interested, definitely check out. I mean, the Cranberries are just great anyway. Sadly, we lost her a few years ago. But yeah, that was a tradition. That specific like morning call. Yes, that's another thing. Another thing that, humans have similarly in lots of different cultures, professional mourners. Although I don't think all professional mourners were made to like wail and moan and cry. Some of them were in different cultures, but not all. But the practice did die out quite a bit during English colonization. So I think by writing Zombie, I think the front woman of Cranberries was, you know, trying to just... Her and Sinead O'Connor were really... They stood on business, and they were, you know, about bringing their culture to a global stage. So I thought that was pretty cool. If you're deaf, can a banshee still affect you? That's a good question. That I do not know the answer to. Interesting. I wonder if maybe if you just have to see it. But I know people who don't see them but heard them were affected. So I don't know. She wrote it in response to 2 children dying in a bombing attack by Irish extremists during the Independence Wars. Ah, yeah. During the Civil War. Or what, the Independence Wars or the Civil War? Let me double check. But yeah, if it's written about death, then yeah, having that style. Dolores, thank you. I forgot her name. Dolores O'Riordan. God, I can't pronounce shit today. It's a protest song. It was during the Troubles. It was not during... They usually call it a civil war rather than an independence war. Technically, yes, that is what they were fighting for. But it was a split between the loyalists in Northern Ireland and those, the Republicans in Ireland. Republicans in Ireland is an entirely different word than Republicans here in the States. If you are a Republican in Northern Ireland, technically, it means that you believe in a united, free Ireland. And if you're a loyalist, you're loyal to the crown and to the United Kingdom. Yes, the Troubles, that is correct. Yep. That was one big thing. Whenever we went to Belfast, just seeing, you can still see the effect that the Troubles had on Belfast. And it's really not completely resolved. I won't go too much into it, just because it's a Halloween stream and this is a very touchy subject, but in Belfast, there are still steel gates that are locked every night. Even though the Good Friday Peace Agreement has been in effect for 26 years, and Brexit is making it a touchy subject because technically you can go in between the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. There's no military, there's no border checkpoints because in the Good Friday Peace Agreement, in 1999, that was one of the stipulations, is that there would be no checkpoints at the border. But because Northern Ireland is a part of the United Kingdom, and United Kingdom voted to leave the EU, there might be some changes along the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, depending on how the Brexit situation plays out. This is just what was told to me. This is not something that I am, like, speculating in my head. That was what was told to me when we went over to Northern Ireland. So. Whew. But yeah. Oh, goodness. But yeah, even it says that in other songs by the Cranberries, there's no, those type of vocals aren't used on any of their other songs because it was directly inspired by that mourning tradition. So. Cool. There's a whole bunch of other I I could go on and talk about Irish music a whole bunch, but that's not the reason why we're here. Oh, definitely. There are lots of UK citizens who really want to rejoin the EU. That was economic. That was a terrible decision economically for them to leave the EU. That was bad news. That was real bad news. And I have a friend in Northern Ireland. I went and visited her on this last trip. And she's like, man, since, recently I haven't been able to get like battery packs, or there are various like goods that she cannot get anymore in Northern Ireland because of this Brexit issue. Because the Republic in the south is still a part of the EU. But the 6 counties in the north that are still a part of the UK are not. It's weird having these 2 different countries on the same landmass that are underneath different, like, one of them is a part of this international continental organization. I don't know what exactly you would call, a union, I guess, the European Union. And then one is just like, whoop, nope. Anyway. What got burned down by, oh, hold on. Oh, my grandparents on my dad's side came to the U.S. because of the, wow. Wow. That's a really, see, my connection to Ireland, my mother's side of the family came over during the famine. So my family's been in North America for a lot longer. But Orange men, I learned about them. William of Orange. The people who are the people in Northern Ireland who are loyal to the English crown are, like, even people in England don't like the royal family that much. It's wild. And the fact that they still celebrate William of Orange in there's a city called Derry. If y'all have watched the show Derry Girls, that's where that show takes place. The loyalists call it Londonderry in Northern Ireland, and then the Republicans just call it Derry. And so in Derry, they have like a monument to William the Orange because he was Protestant and he defeated the previous like Catholic ruler that lived there. And like every year in the summertime, the Protestants and the loyalists in Derry hold a fucking march, like a parade. Everybody dresses in orange and like marches the streets in the city, and everybody who's Catholic or Republican in the city goes and takes a vacation during this celebration because they don't want to fucking see it. It is, I guess, as an American, it's harder to understand these these divides have been there for so long. And being like so far removed from it, I guess, because at least my mother's side of the family has been here since the mid 1800s. I mean, technically, they went to Canada and then made their way down here, but I don't like the Catholics, but man, nah. Listen, not as many people go to church anymore, but they still call themselves Catholic or Protestant because it's just been a thing over there. Anyway, I said I wasn't going to get into it, but then I got into it. History is interesting and messy, and being the absolute nerd that I am, because I have personal connections to it, even if it is far removed. Well, my connection says it's okay. Maybe the buffer's on your end on this time. Anyway, didn't y'all want... We're back? Okay. Didn't y'all want the Fairy King next? I think that was what we were gonna do. The Fairy King and something about divination. Nerding out is fun, no shame. Well, thank you. But if it ever gets too serious or too much, either let me know or, like, feel free to be like, Martha, I'm a peace out. Because I want y'all to be comfortable. I lost my place. Where did it go? The Leprechaun Whisperer. We might have to save that one for St. Patty's Day. Yeah, we're gonna wait on the leprechauns. I can't read that. My Irish is quite awful. There are a lot of words in this thing that I cannot pronounce. But that's okay. One of these stories is just called We Had One in the House for a While. The authors of this book went and, like, interviewed people all across the country and were like, do you have any stories relating to fairies? If so, we would love to hear them and put them in a book. So literally, that's this person just was like, we had one in the house for a while. Okay. Oh, I simply enjoy your yaps. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm glad because I do a lot of yapping. Anthropology is fun. I agree. I have a friend, they have been saying for years, I want to be a VTuber, I want to be a VTuber, and then they've never done it. But they went to school for anthropology, although their specialty was the Mayans. So, you know what? I should bring them on for a little folklore chat one day. We'll talk about, because we haven't talked about Mayan folklore, and they will info dump all about that. We can just make them a PNG, and they can come yap on a folklore episode about the Mayans. Because that's something I haven't done a whole lot of research into, but they have. College level, baby. Not Dick Gumshoe. That's on Friday. If he shows up. I'm not sure if he'll show up in this case, but Ace Attorney's on Friday. Yes, we do go down the little rabbit trails. Yes, we do. So true. Okay, we had one in the house. Ooh? The palace, wait. The palace below the lake. That sounds like, something with a fairy king in it. Yes, we do love our food anthropology. We do talk about that. Yes, we do. But let's learn about the palace below the lake in County Clare. County Clare is beautiful. It is a beautiful place. And the people there are lovely. I would love to go back to County Clare. We only had a day there. I need to just go back without, doing one of these tour things and just go by myself. Just so I can, like, spend an ample amount of time in these places, you know? As much as I can afford. Alright. The palace below the lake. Long ago, in the mountains of Snaty. There are 3 different ways of spelling this thing, and they're all included here. Snature. Man, I know nothing about how Gaelic works. Absolutely nothing. I'm gonna guess, and we're gonna go with it. My apologies to anybody who speaks Gaelic in this chat. Long ago, in the mountains of Snady, about 2 miles outside of Killikishen, there lived a man named Pat O'Leary. I can say Pat O'Leary. Pat did not have very much in the line of possessions and wealth. In fact, all he had to his name was a dairy cow. I will say, Irish dairy is excellent. They have superior dairy products. She was a good beast and produced plenty of fresh, creamy milk, and Pat was very fond of her indeed. I mean, listen, if you had a cow, that meant you had something. That was a source of money back in those days. What was I gonna say about O'Leary? Right. I wonder how the Irish ended up with O blank. Like O'Donnell, O'Leary, Riley. Did I say that already? There was a bunch of Irish. It's O something. And I don't know how it started, but there was, even in the 1200s, they talked about different clans, and a couple of them had O something in their names. And I don't know how it happened. I'll have to look it up. Canada's on my list. I'll get up there eventually. But there was a lovely dairy cow, and Pat O'Leary loved the dairy cow. I hope nothing, knock on wood, nothing happens to this cow. Please let the cow survive. Pat hadn't much to his name, but his heart was full, and he was a kind and gentle man. He had fallen deeply in love with a beautiful local girl who was known to the locals as dark-haired Mary of the Mountain. I bet you she's a fairy. She had raven black hair and eyes as green as the sea. Her skin was snow white, and whenever Pat thought of her, his heart skipped a beat, and he wondered how lucky he was that such a creature could love a fella like him. Is it a clan thing? I wonder. He had proposed to dark-haired Mary of the Mountain, and she had accepted his proposal with much delight. Hell yeah! I love that. Go Pat. Pat and Mary. Oh, a signifier. I wonder. We could look that up. But, as we know, poor Pat had not much in the line of a dowry, and he did not want to look poor and unworthy in front of Mary's people. So there was only one thing for it. He would have to sell his only valuable possession, his fine dairy cow, and that was that. Poor cow. He decided to bring her to the fair of Tulla and sell the animal to the highest bidder. He started off for Tulla early in the night or late in the day, whichever way you want to look at it. 'Tis all the same. I love that about Irish people. They're like, whatever, it's fine. Oh, I think Pillow looked it up for us. Let me scroll up here. The O in Irish last names originates from the Gaelic prefix wa, which means descendant of or grandson of. Oh, so it's like in is it Icelandic names like Frederick's son? Mendel's son, it's like son of this person, son of this person. I think it's kind of like that. This prefix was used to indicate lineage and patronymy, where a person's surname was derived from the name of their ancestor or family patriarch. In Irish, the prefix O is an abbreviation of the word wa or ui. I'm probably pronouncing those wrong. The prefix is unique to Ireland and distinguishes Irish surnames from those of Scotland and other Celtic languages, which use the Mac and Mick premixes. Oh! So, like, If you're Irish, it's an O. If you're Scottish, it's Mac. And then maybe if you're English, it's Mick? I don't know. When an Irish surname begins with an O, it indicates that the bearer is a descendant of the original bearer of the name. For example, O'Neill means descendant of Neil, while O'Sullivan means the descendant of Sullivan. The O prefix is an anglicization of the Irish which was adapted into the English as an apostrophe. In many cases, the original Irish name would have included the fada, a diacritical mark indicating the long vowel sound above the letter in things I can't read. However, this mark was often dropped during the process of anglicization, leaving only the apostrophe as a reminder of the original Irish prefix. Overall, the O in Irish last names is a testament to the rich cultural heritage and linguistic traditions of Ireland, and serves as a connection to the country's ancient Gaelic past. But did he get a magic bean? Like into the woods? It is sad. It's sad that a lot of the language almost died out. But Ireland is definitely, like, all of their official, like, signs in the Republic have Irish on them before English. All the kids have to learn some Irish Gaelic in school, and if you want to be a politician in the Republic of Ireland, you must speak fluent Irish. So they're trying to bring it back. But that's interesting. Thank you, Pillow, for the deep dive. Well, we'll see if Pat O'Leary gets some magic beans or actual money from this cow. Let's figure it out. When he arrived at Culzean Lake, it was midnight and the moon was shining in the sky like a big silver dollar. He decided to take a rest for both himself and the cow. As he was resting, a strange wee man came out of the shadows, and he spoke to him kindly and gently. He said, "Pat, isn't it early for you to be going to the fair?" Poor Pat was already shocked that this wee cratur had appeared out of nowhere in front of him, but now he had addressed him by his own name as if he knew him. He was a strange-looking little man. He looked so both wise and youthful all at once, and he wore a jacket of velvet so green it shone, fine yellow breeches, well-polished black boots, and a red cap upon his head. It's a leprechaun. Pat found a leprechaun! Pat O'Leary, does that mean he's the grandson of Leary? I guess so, if what we just read is to be believed. So, I learned in Ireland this time that leprechauns were originally dressed in red, because red is the color of magic in Ireland. So the red hat that he has on, a red cap, that means he's got magic. And my guide specifically blames Disney and their movie Darby O'Gill and the Little People, for popularizing the idea of leprechauns dressed in green. Because I think there was something of, like, the red not showing up on camera as vividly as the green, and they wanted everything to be really bright and colorful and vivid. So they put the leprechauns in that movie in green. And so according to my guide in Ireland, according to Derek, he blames Disney and that movie for changing the clothes of leprechauns from red to green. Silly stuff. Don't be afraid, Pat. Sure, I am only here to help you. Come with me, for I have a great many things to show you. Ah, yes, tiny man comes out of the bushes, knows your name, and says, "I'ma help you." Again, this is where my exciting story would end. I'd be like, "Nah," and I would go back home. But I'm sure Pat's gonna follow this tiny man, so let's see what happens. With that, the wee man produced a hazel rod from under his jacket, and he waved it before Pat. As soon as he did this, a magnificent palace rose up out of Culane Lake. "Where did that come from?" asked Pat, bewildered by what he saw. "Sure, it was always there," said the wee man, and laughed at the look of amazement on Pat's face. The wee man then asked Pat to go into the palace and leave the cow outside. Pat had never seen the likes of this magnificent building, which shone and sparkled in the moonlight like a great diamond. It was something from a dream, and Pat pinched himself to make sure he was not dreaming. The gates of the castle were made of pure gold, and the steps up to it were carved from beautiful marble. When they entered the palace, they were greeted by hundreds of little footmen and servants, all lined up and bowing to the strange wee man and his guest from the mortal world. How much you want to bet it's the Fairy King? Down the long hallway they went, until they came to a set of huge ornate doors. The doors swung open before them, and Pat could not believe his eyes, for before him was the most beautiful hall he had ever seen. It must have been the size of 3 football fields. In this great hall were hundreds of dancers, musicians, singers, and storytellers, all having the time of their lives. They all greeted the strange wee man, and they were all very polite and courteous to Pat. There was music, dancing, and entertainment of all kinds there. Pat thought he had died and gone to heaven. But he knew fine rightly that he was not in heaven, but the heart of a fairy kingdom, and this wee man that he was with must be the king himself. He wished his true love, Mary, was there to share this wonderful experience with him, and that she deserved all the magnificence and beauty that place had to offer. An American measurement, the football field. Well, maybe they meant like soccer football. In the middle of the hall, there was a huge table laden down with every sort and type of food and drink that you could imagine. Then he saw there was another table covered in buns. It reminded him of a story that he had heard from a farmer called Patsy McDermott from Killincare. That's what I'm gonna say it is. In County Cavan. In this story, he described a table with every type of bun you could imagine. There were sticky buns, dry buns, sugary buns, sweet buns, hard buns, soft buns, short buns, long buns, big buns, little buns, flat buns, round buns, half buns, full buns, cream buns, iced buns, hot buns, cold buns, honey buns, big buns, little buns, jam buns, jelly buns, currant buns, cherry buns, apple buns, pear buns, banana buns, plum buns, custard buns, coffee buns, chocolate buns, buttered buns, burnt buns, frosted buns, nutty buns, chewy buns, triangle buns, square buns, fun buns, and of course, fairy buns. How many? Did you really have to write all that? Did they really have to write out all those fucking buns? Oh, God. How? I never knew that there could be so many different types of buns. I mean, I like bread as much as the next bitch. Oh, but that's funny. Oh, boy. Buns. Now, the word bun doesn't even sound like a word anymore. Pat was invited. That is more than the GDP of the whole world. What, buns? Or there was a message that Pillow sent about somebody suing somebody for a ridiculous amount of money. 20 decillion? That's dumb. That is worth more than the whole world. That's stupid. Ugh. Alright, so, Pat was invited to eat the buns, but you're not supposed to eat the food from the fairy world, or at least that's, to my knowledge. Pat was invited to eat, but knowing he was in a fairy palace, he refused. It was said that if a person should eat with the fairies, he or she could not leave them. and Pat knew that. There was a big part of Pat that would have loved to have lived amongst the good folk, but he would be heartbroken if he was never to see his beautiful Mary again. At that point, the strange wee man, who Pat now recognized as King of the Fairies, told him it was time to leave and they should go to the fair. They left the wonderful palace together and made their way to the fair. As soon as they did, the King of the Fairies stopped in his tracks and spoke to Pat, and this is what he said. Pat, I have been watching you for a long time now, and I have seen that you are a good man with a good heart. You are willing to part with the only thing that was of any value to you so that you may marry your one true love. Excuse me. I wish to buy this fine cow that has been reared and cared for with love and kindness. Its milk is the sweetest in all of Ireland, and we the fairy folk like nothing more than a cup of sweet, fresh milk. Ooh! Excuse me. With that, the wee man produced a leather bag and gave it to Pat. Lost my place. He looked inside and it was full of pure, solid gold coins. Pat thanked the wee man, who disappeared with the cow. He knew not to tell a soul that it was fairy gold, for if he did, it would turn to ashes or worse. When Pat got back to Snatey, the locals looked at him like they had seen a ghost. One woman fainted, and another one blessed herself as he passed her. He thought that this was most peculiar. Oh no. How long was he down there in the fairy castle? Oh no, is Mary still alive? Was he gone for years? Oh, I'm scared. Oh no. Sure, he was only away for a few hours and no one was expecting him till the following day anyway. He called into his parents' cottage and was alarmed to see his mother cry out in horror and his father fall to his knees in prayer. What in heaven's name was going on? Had everybody gone mad? He went to his parents and reassured them that he was all right and asked them what the drama was about. They told him that he had been gone for over a year, and the last they heard of him was from a local farmer who saw him walk into Culane Lake. They were sure that he had lost his mind and taken his own life in the lake. Oh no! I knew it! Oh God. This was a great shock to Pat, who believed that he had been away for only a few hours, half a day at most. But then time in the fairy world was a very different thing indeed. But sadly, he could not tell that he was taken by the fairies, for folk would surely believe that he had gone insane. He told them he had been captured by thieves, but he had managed to escape with their gold and was keen to get home and see his dear parents and his one true love, Mary. He asked where Mary was, and he was told that she had gone into mourning and had hardly spoken a word to a soul since he had gone. When Pat heard this, he ran as fast as his legs would carry him all the way up the mountain to where Mary lived with her parents. Her mother and father reacted in a similar fashion as those before and thought that he may be a phantom cursed to roam the world as punishment for taking his own life. He reassured them as before that he was not a ghost or the living dead, and he told them the tale of the robbers and how he had escaped. He went inside the house, and sitting down by the unlit fire was Mary, with a great black shawl draped over her head and shoulders. She sat, crouched over like a very old woman. Pat called out to her, and when she looked up, she could not believe her eyes. Mary screamed and was about to fall to the floor with the shock of it all, when Pat caught her just in time. When she had settled herself, he looked into her eyes and said, "Dark-haired Mary of the Mountain, I have been away a long time, and I have seen many things beyond your wildest dreams.
He told her that although he had seen so many magnificent things, nothing could compare to her beauty and his undying love for her. They kissed, and that evening a wedding was set in progress and a great tent was erected. People came from all over to celebrate this wonderful occasion, and there was no concern about a dowry or comfort for the newlywed couple, for Pat had more wealth now than he could have ever imagined. After they were married, Pat and Mary emigrated to America, where they lived long and happy lives together. Mary bore many children, and their children's children still live there and come over to visit County Clare once in a while to see where it all began, with the love of a simple man and woman, and a wee bit of help from the fairy folk.
That was cute! That was very cute. That was a sweet one. That was very nice. I liked that one. We enjoy a nice, wholesome story. That was a nice fairy, wasn't it, Velcro? Velcro, there's nice fairies.
Hello, cat. You know, in Celtic mythology, there is a cat fairy spirit called a Katshi. It's a black cat with a little white spot on its chest. And you were to leave offerings for the Katshi, and it would bring good fortune. Yes. I left you an offering of a churu treat earlier. Were you pleased? She's over here licking her chops. I think she's pleased. Yes. Yes. We'll have to talk about the Katshi in more detail another day. You know, I think we may have lost Macaron and Elita, but I'm still looking for some sort of divination thing. Maybe we could do... Oh! I know! This isn't from the book. Macaron, Elita, are y'all still here? I don't know, but there is a bit of divination, a bit of fun, that has to do with baking on Halloween. There's a specific, like, cake that's made in Ireland on Halloween called barmbrack. Oh, you're here. Cool. It's called barmbrack or baronbrack, and it translates to speckled loaf. And it is a cake that is made with dried fruits and spices and citrus zest, and people would put different things, like objects, inside the cake for people to find as a form of divination. My namesake is baking. I'm already interested. I love that. Yeah, no, just vibing and listening. That's good. But I just didn't know if you were here for divination stuff. But they would put different things into the cake. It's kind of like king cake for Mardi Gras, in a way. And so there were a bunch of different things you could put in, but the main ones that I would hear about are a pea, a dried pea or a bean, a stick, a cloth, and a ring. Oh, and a coin. A dry pea or bean, a cloth or a stick, a ring, and a coin. So, depending on which item you got, kind of determined your fortune for the year. So, you would, make your batter and then, spread your items randomly about, bake the cake, and then when you would cut into it, if you got the bean or the pea, that means that you would not get married within the year. You would not be partnered up. You would be alone. If you got the stick or the scrap of cloth,
That means that you were not doing well financially and you would probably still be poor in the coming year. So save up your money. If you got the coin in your piece of barmbrack, then you would be wealthy and prosperous within the coming year. And the most desired object was the ring. Because if you cut your piece and you found the ring in your piece of barmbrack, that means you would get married within the year. And what you would do with the ring is you would take it and put it underneath your pillow that night. And you would fall asleep. And apparently you would dream of the person that you were supposed to marry when you put the ring underneath the pillow. Right? Isn't it cool? You can now, in Ireland, I don't know if I took a picture or not. I think I did. You can buy barmbrack at the grocery store in Ireland. Now, the only thing they put in the store-bought ones is like a little ring. They don't put a coin in it. They don't put beans or sticks. Ah, beans! Yeah. But they do have barmbrack in grocery stores, and they do put a ring in it. And apparently it's a fun little tradition to see who gets the ring. So I actually made barmbrack today, because I am having a friend over tomorrow afternoon, and she wants to hear all about Ireland, so I found a recipe, and I made it, and I stuck a ring in there. So we'll see who gets the ring tomorrow. Let me hydrate. But I just thought that was a fun little thing. I love just things like that. I think it's super cute. Originally, barmbrack was made with yeast. It was a yeasted bread. But, when famine hit and bicarbonate of soda was introduced to the country, it was made with baking soda, just because soda bread is huge in Ireland. Soda bread's everywhere. And actually, the recipe I found is made with tea. That is the liquid. Share it with us. Yes, I will cut it up and mail a piece to everybody, and we'll see who finds the ring. But I will definitely post pictures in the Discord server, because that is a hefty, I made it in a loaf pan. It is a hefty loaf. That is heavy. Quite dense. So you're supposed to slice it thin and smear on some delicious Irish butter and then have it with a cup of tea. And I think I went a little heavy on the citrus zest, because you zest an orange and a lemon to go in there, and I might have gone a little crazy. But I liked the addition, because what you do with the fruit is you soak it overnight in strong tea. You put all your dried fruit, raisins and sultanas are traditional. You can put whatever dried fruit you want in there. I think I might do it with apricots next time, because that just sounds delicious. But you put your dried fruit in a bowl, and then you zest your citrus, and you put that in there. And then you put in your sugar, and then you pour 2 to 3 cups, depending on the recipe, of strong Irish tea. Do not use English tea for your tea brack or your barmbrack. It will upset the fairies. So I bought Irish tea while I was over there. It's called Barry's. All the English teas have fancy names, and then in Ireland it's this is Barry's tea. Thank you, Barry. It's quite a bit stronger than English breakfast tea, I've noticed. It's maltier. And I enjoy a nice malty black tea. It's perfect with milk. So that's what I use, and I think I will continue drinking it. So you soak your fruit overnight with your tea and your, citrus zest and your sugar. And then, all your fruit will be nice and plump and juicy. And then you mix that in with flour, spices, and the recipe called for cinnamon, cloves, ginger, and nutmeg.
So spices, flour, your baking soda, or no, baking powder, baking soda, a leavening agent, and then your fruit liquid and 2 beaten eggs. And then you mix that together, pour it in a greased pan, stick in your objects, your coin, your ring, your stick, your bean, whatever, and then slap that bitch in the oven for like an hour and a half. And there it is. So, it is heavy. All that fruit really adds some weight to the cake. Because there was almost as much, like, fruit in it as there was flour. It was pretty, I was pretty impressed that it actually came together. I was a little worried. But this recipe was for a really rich one. Because, you know, back in the early days, the fruit was a lot more sparse since it wasn't readily available or affordable. So I think as the times have gone on, they've just upped the ratio of fruit because we can afford it now. And like, honestly, bet. Raisins get a bad rap, but honestly, I'm a fan. Not in everything. You don't put raisins in everything, but in a baked good, like, because we've talked about, like, oatmeal raisin cookies in the past and how they're my favorite cookie. I will take a raisin in a baked good, in a bread, in a scone, in a cookie. But if you try and put raisins in savory shit, we're not gonna be friends. Anyway, there's our little divination tradition. Let's read one more story, and then I have to be off to bed because my Halloween starts with a doctor's appointment, you know, as a chronically ill bitch. I was on vacation for a while, so now it is back to the doctor with me. But let's read one more story before I get ready for bed. I do not know what that word... Ooh, Dano and the devil. So we can do the devil. Shaman. Ooh, shaman or charlatan. That could be fun. Let's see. The fairy teacups. Yep, that's what we're doing. I am making the executive decision. We're going to end with fairy teacups. Because we were just talking about a tea bread. Bread made with tea. Raisins in curry is good? What type of curry, though? Is it like Japanese curry? Like the sweeter curry? Or is it like spicy? I've never had raisins in curry. I feel like I've seen it somewhere before, but I was too scared to try it. I'm gonna have to look into that. Raisins in curry. It always leads back to food over here. It never fails. Never fails. Alright, but we're gonna end with the fairy teacups. From County Waterford. That is a county I have not been to yet in Ireland. I would like to go, and that is where the famous Waterford crystal is made. So if you enjoy lovely glassware, Waterford crystal is the way to go. Alright, the fairy teacups. Maurice Power was an old man who lived beside Crook Church near Passage East in County Waterford. This is a story about an experience he had when he was a much younger man. One evening, he was coming home from a fair, a little bit worse for wear, but in great form. He decided to stay back for a few drinks, and so on his return home, he was a little merry, swaying a little from left to right, but causing no trouble, just happy in himself and minding his own business. He finally reached Kill St. Nicholas Crossroads. That is a name! My God! I know it's Halloween, but Kill St. Nicholas? Damn, okay. What did y'all have against St. Nicholas in this town? Kill St. Nicholas Crossroads, and just as he was passing by the field, he heard music. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks, and maybe it was just wishful thinking on his part because he sure wasn't ready to turn in for the night. Maurice was ready for a party. So let's see what he finds. He was mad for a bit more crack, and sure, hearing music was a true delight for him. Crack, C-R-A-I-C. That is an Irish Gaelic word, and it means fun. We are not talking drugs. Crack, C-R-A-I-C. If someone comes up to you and says, "Hey lads, what's the crack?" It's like, hey, where's the party at? Where's the fun? If you see, on some like pub signs, it'll say crack, and then it will say the Gaelic word for music. I forget what it is, but it also starts with a C. Our guide told us a story of, he was in New York City, and one of his buddies was visiting him in New York City, and he went up to the bartender in New York, and he goes, "Hey lads, where's the crack?" And the bartender was about to call the police on him, and Derek had to run over and be like, no, he's Irish. He's Irish. Please do not call the police on this man. He did not mean drugs. But you learned your Irish word of the day, crack. He was mad for a bit more crack, and sure, hearing music was only a true delight for him. So Maurice did what many a person would do on the way home from having a few drinks. He followed the music. He followed the crack. And as far as he was concerned, the night was hardly over. Lee's was a field that was familiar to Maurice, and so he felt safe when entering it, and he was curious to know who the musicians were. Were they locals, or traveling through the area and stopped off for a tune? Well, Maurice nearly died when he saw who it was. Right before him were the good people. He had heard stories growing up, but he had never met a fairy in the flesh. They were so nice to Maurice and invited him to join their gathering. "Maurice, don't you be drinking any of the fairy alcohol. You'll be stuck there forever." Maurice felt comfortable enough to take them up on their offer, and so he sat with them and enjoyed the beautiful music. They were dancing and laughing, and Maurice was quickly swept along by the whole feeling. He soon noticed that the fairies were drinking from little teacups, and Maurice had never seen anything as small and dainty in his whole life. And when he saw them, he thought how his young daughters would love to play with little teacups like those. Oh no, Maurice! When the fairies' backs were turned, Maurice took a few of the teacups and slipped them into his pocket and carried on partying with the fairies. The fairies were still in great form and dancing away, so Maurice felt like he got away with stealing their teacups. This is usually unheard of because there isn't much that passes a fairy. So he thought he was clever and was probably the only man alive who managed to outwit the fairies. Uh-oh, Maurice. They are usually careful and watchful, and not many manage to fool a fairy. Maurice was beginning to sober up and started to realize what was actually happening. He was in a field, at a fairy gathering, and he was the only one who wasn't one of them. And he began to feel a little fearful. And also he remembered that he had stolen something from them. And even if he had wanted to return the teacups, he knew it would have been a bad idea because the wee folk could turn on him. And Maurice had heard stories growing up about the fairies. Right, no stealing, but he already did it. He was too drunk to practice good judgment. Good stories, of course, but bad stories too, and he didn't want his experience to end up a bad one. So Maurice was polite and thanked the fairies for having him, and he made his excuses and left. This time, he walked a little faster back out the gate and went towards home. He knew his wife and kids would be getting up soon. That's if they weren't up already. When he returned home, his wife was waiting. She was both angry and worried about where he was all night. He told her the story, and out of a mix of inbuilt fear and respect for the fairies, she gave him the benefit of the doubt, and his story was so convincing and intriguing, she had little choice but to believe him. His story had such detail as he was telling it, she could almost see the little folk. Their little feet dancing in their green and red soft velvet jackets, and their table with all sorts of food and drink, and the music. Well, she could almost hear the music as Maurice described it. His wife was convinced he was with the fairies, and when the children got up, he told them the very same story, and their little eyes lit up, and they too were taken to somewhere else. Then he got to the part about the teacups. He said the fairies had given him a few teacups to take home with him for his little girls. See, and I bet if he had asked them, they probably would have given him some. At this point, the girls were giddy with excitement. These little girls wouldn't have had many toys and certainly didn't have china teacups to play with. Maurice was in his element. He had the full attention of his little girls. They were holding on to his every word, and behind them stood his wife, who was also impressed by the way he was with their little girls. For that moment, he felt like the most wonderful father and husband in all of the world. So, he reached into his pocket, and out he took his treasure, and to his horror, all that he found were cockle shells. The girls began to cry, and the mother was disgusted and felt he had made the whole story up. He went from being the king of the castle to being no one. They were so annoyed at him. Listen, that was probably the tamest thing they could have done to that man. I was worried they would have done worse. Maurice was upset and angry with the fairies and himself, so he went for a lie down. When he awoke, he had a strange pain in his head, a pain like he had never had before. He put his hand to his head to rub his scalp, when to his horror, he found that his beautiful, thick, black, glossy hair was gone. He was completely bald. His hair never grew back. He felt the fairies obviously punished him for stealing from them. Maurice never betrayed the fairies again, and he never ever followed the sound of fiddles. He came straight home to his wife and children, and every day when he looked in the mirror, it was a reminder to always respect the good folk, for they are always watching. Never forget, you cannot fool a fairy. Yeah, I will say he got off easy, but I do remember one of the local guides telling me that making people bald was one of the fairies' favorite tricks. I guess, you know, appearance means a lot to the fairies, or they know it means a lot to people, so they're like, oop, bald. You fuck with us, oop, bald. But yeah, I would say he got off easy. But I guess the teacups weren't worth as much as other things. So just a light punishment. I mean, he did say they were very small people. I guess they could have used shells for teacups. Maybe he was drunk. Maybe he was drunk and didn't notice that the teacups were actually shells. But he still stole, so off went his hair. Goodbye. Oh, that was a bit of a lighthearted one to end on, but I feel like the stories got less scary as I went onwards. But there's still a whole bunch in this book that I had not read. So, if we want more fairy stories in the future, we can go ahead and read some more. I'm down. And we gotta talk about the Kachi and divination and all sorts of other stuff. So, that is going to be it for the night because I do have a doctor's appointment early in the morning. Otherwise, I would stay up and talk fairies with y'all all night. But I do have things to do. So, tomorrow I am taking the night off for Halloween. I'm going to spend it in. We're going to watch some movies. Have a very fall-themed meal. It'll be lovely. And then on Friday... Oh, no, wait. Actually, I'm not streaming, but there will be a new song cover up on my YouTube channel. It premieres at 1 p.m. Central Time, but it will be there whenever you're ready to watch it. I was a part of a virtual idol showcase last weekend, and I created a VTuber-specific version of it for y'all, and that's going to be up on the channel tomorrow at 1 p.m. Central Time. So you'll have some music to listen to whilst I am off for the night from streaming. And then on Friday, we will be back Friday night, 8 p.m. Central Time, for the beginning of our last installment of the Ace Attorney trilogy, Trials and Tribulations. So, if y'all want to hang out and do some Ace Attorney on Friday, make sure you show up at 8 o'clock on Friday night. Let's see. Ooh, there's a lot of people live tonight. Everybody's doing Halloween things. Let's see. Who can we go say hi to? Let's say hello. Let's go say hello to Velvet Rose Gaming. Velvet's playing some Baldur's Gate 3. So let's go ahead and let's go say hi to Velvet. Tell her and her friend hello for me. I appreciate that. And I will see you again on Friday for some Ace Attorney. Happy Halloween. I hope you have a fun and safe Halloween. If you want to post your costumes in the Discord server, please do. Thank you for joining me for some Irish Fairy Stories. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye. Happy Halloween.